Hey guys, I just want to show you a quick tutorial, a couple things about Inkscape. Reminder, it's the little icon here that looks like the mountains. When you open it up, you have what's called the canvas here in the middle. You would think of it like a blank piece of paper or something that you would make a drawing on. Basically, if I draw a shape on the side, it's not going to show up unless it's on top of the canvas. It will allow me to draw shapes on the side, but the only thing that will show up is what's on the actual canvas. Getting started, a couple helpful tools, right? We can click this icon on the side, the rectangle, and this allows us to draw rectangles. All the other shapes on the side will draw the similar shape to what they kind of show you. If you first stretch a rectangle the size of our canvas, it's kind of the only way to make the background a color. So in my case, I made a red rectangle right here. We were working with our different font types, so let's just think about the whole page as being the thumbnail initially. If I come over here with the A, that's my text tool, you can see it has a very small cursor right here, and I can type a letter. In my case, I'm going to make it an X. Now it's so small you can't really see it, but I can zoom in. Okay. The most helpful tool in Inkscape is going to be the arrow tool right here. The arrow tool selects an object, and I'm actually able to scale my text up this way as well, or I could use my font menu and change the size of the text up top. But I'll use my pointer selector. If I hold down Control and Shift at the same time, I know that I can stretch it in the same ratio without distorting it. So you can see I made it much larger. I'll zoom back out. If I hold Control and scroll on my mouse, I can zoom out. Okay, looks like I need to make it a bit bigger. And maybe I don't like that font. I'm still able to go back into my font menu here and change that a little bit. So I can come in and you'll see there's a very large selection here of different fonts. Notice I can move my object just by clicking and moving around. If I click on it a second time, see how the corners change here, and I'm able to actually rotate whatever I have as well. So I might want to rotate this S, have it fit on my canvas a little bit better. And then if I click again, I can scale it back up. Similar to other keyboard shortcuts that work in other programs, if I wanted to duplicate this S, I could just do copy and paste, either with the edit menu up here, or I can simply select and do Control-C, Control-V. This is especially helpful if you wanted to make multiples of something, or to cut through a shape, or get an exact copy of a shape that you already have. I'll show you something cool that we can do with this as well. Let's just create another text box over here. My other initial will be a V, so I'm going to create a V, stretch it out, make it larger. Okay, so let's say I have the S, which is an exact copy, and I have this V now. Let's say I wanted to combine these in a certain way. One other helpful tool is right here. If I hold Shift and select both letters, see how they each have a box, and so I know they're both selected. If I come up to the top to Path, there's a bunch of options here as to how you can combine two different shapes into one shape. You see here union, meaning that the two shapes will become one. Difference, it will cut one shape kind of into the other one. You'll be left with the remainder pieces. Intersection, you'll be left with just where they overlap. Exclusion, similar, just whatever where they don't overlap is what you were made with. And cut path will cut the top shape into the bottom shape. You see a few other options here, but I won't get into those just yet. But let's try one such as, let's do exclusions. Now you see that where the letters intersected, it's now white because I basically cut out the part where they overlap. So by doing this, you can really create much more visually complex objects. This S and this S are exactly the same, so one thing I could do is, let's see, I changed the color of this S and offset it. Then it appears where they overlapped, I now have a different color. Another helpful tool is what's called the node tool. If I have a shape such as this V and S now combined together, if I go here to my tool just below the selector tool, it's called the node tool. It says edit paths by nodes. If you click on this, it gives you points on your letter where there's curves or where there's a corner, and you're able to modify any kind of shape that you've already drawn. For instance, if I zoom in here, if I click on a node, I'm able to drag it and kind of move it. Some of these nodes will allow you to, if it's on a curve, you might be able to edit the curve, right, and adjust the angle. Otherwise, the straight ones will just allow you to move it up and down, side to side. One of the most helpful tabs in Inkscape is the Fill and Stroke tab. You can see it here on the side where it says Fill and Stroke. If this does not appear on your screen, it's pretty easy to get to. All you have to do is go up to where it says Object in the top left, and then scroll down here until you see Fill and Stroke. If you click on that, it will pull this new box up to your right, a new toolbox, and you can do a lot of different things with this. For instance, I have the V and the S highlighted right now, and it gives you a couple options right here to the right. I can experiment with patterns or what's called a gradient. You see there how I clicked that, and it kind of created a transparency here. Gradients and patterns can all be edited by using that same node tool that we used before. So if I'm on the gradient right here, I can also do a radial gradient from the center, or one left to right. But if I come over here and click on the nodes tool, I'm able to adjust that gradient, as you can see, to get some pretty cool effects as well. Now, we talked a lot before about different line types and how it creates a variety in our design. In my case here, I have almost like a calligraphic or a handwritten type mark with the S where it gets thick to thin. Then I have a more structured kind of text that I did with this V, right? That being said, we can kind of draw our own text as well, something similar to handwrite. If you go over here to draw calligraphic or brush strokes, the one that looks like a pen on the left side, if you click that, it gives you a lot of different options here about how to make marks. And what these things do is, width is obviously how wide your mark is, but these things such as thinning and angle kind of replicate handwriting, especially if you want to use the drawing stylus and try this out. You can get some pretty interesting effects. Tremor kind of adjusts the edge of the mark, so let's just see what we have here to start. You know, that's more of like a sketchy kind of line, which could be a nice contrast with what I have so far. And this works just the same as the other things that we've made. You can edit it by scaling it with the selection tool. If I hold Control and Shift again, I'm able to maintain the same ratio, yet scale it up and down. I could even make this much larger on my canvas and find something close to my background color. Now let's say this is on top, but I want to put it down to the bottom below all of my other layers. One way to do this is to find the function button on your keyboard and then press the page down or the arrow down button, and this will lower it. I kind of like it more actually. So now my V is below my other V and X. One last important thing I want to show you is just how to basically crop in Inkscape. It's a little bit confusing because the fact is we have these things hanging off our canvas that maybe we won't necessarily want in our finished composition. So in order to do that, what we have to do is actually, instead of cropping, we're taking all of our objects and we're going to wrap them as a pattern onto another rectangle. It sounds confusing, but it's not that difficult. Basically, take your selection tool and just select all of everything. You can either do one at a time and hold Shift, or if I just start here and drag a box, it will allow me to select everything that I have so far. Now what I have to do is go up to the Object tab in the top left corner and come here where it says Pattern. If I click Pattern and go to Objects to Pattern, I'm taking all of these objects and basically flattening them out into a pattern that the computer is saving. Now I'm going to take that pattern and paste it onto a new object. So in my case, I'm going to use a rectangle, but I could use any shape, a star, a circle, whatever I want to do, but I'm going to make a rectangle the size of my canvas. And if I come down over here in my Fill and Stroke tab to the pattern, little icon, click that. Notice how the pattern is now on my rectangle. It looks almost like it went transparent, but what really happened is that the pattern is now on the rectangle. I can move the rectangle to the side here now. And you notice it kind of moved a little bit. If I just go to my node tool, I can center my pattern back.